We found the Dragon's Lair beneath the ocean, a legendary gold recovery mission. The sonar anomaly appeared at 02:14 a.m. On the bridge of the research vessel Ardent Tide, the night hummed with electronics, low beeps, scrolling grids of blue light, the steady hiss of compressed air cycling through dive systems. Most of the crew were half asleep, riding caffeine and routine, when Dr. Mira Caldwell leaned closer to her monitor and froze. "That's not a ridge," she whispered. Jonah Reyes, expedition leader and former salvage diver, stepped behind her. On the screen, the seafloor unfolded in grayscale relief, sediment plains, scattered basalt spines, and then something else. A circular depression nearly 200 meters across. At its center, a jagged mound that rose like a crown of stone. Mira tapped keys, rerunning the sweep. The shape didn't vanish. Jonah exhaled slowly. Depth?
Contact confirmed.
3,100 meters. Someone at the back muttered, "That's abyssal."
Anomaly is expanding.
Mira overlaid magnetic data.
Trajectory
The
stable,
color
energy
scale
readings are spiking.
spiked violently at the center of the structure, reds and whites blooming like a wound in the earth. "High-density metallic signatures," she said. "Not natural, or at least not typical." Jonah's jaw tightened. They hadn't come chasing myths. The mission charter was straightforward. Survey an uncharted trench along a forgotten colonial shipping route, map potential wrecks, document geology. But every deep-sea explorer knew the rumors, whispers buried in port city bars and archival footnotes about a vanished convoy from the 1700s. A fleet that carried gold from 3 continents, a fleet that never arrived. Sailors called the place where it vanished the Dragon's Grave, claiming storms rose from clear skies, compasses spun, and the ocean itself swallowed ships whole. Jonah didn't believe in dragons, but he believed in data. Jonah said, "Prep the drones." The descent. ROV Calypso slipped into the water an hour later, a mechanical insect bristling with cameras and lights. Its tether unspooled into darkness as the ship rolled gently above. In the control room, the crew gathered, engineers, geologists, historians, sonar techs. Mira sat rigid at her console. Down went the drone. Sunlight vanished within minutes. Blue faded to black. Bioluminescent streaks flashed past the cameras like passing comets. At 1,500 meters, pressure readouts climbed into lethal ranges for any human body. At 2,800, the seabed ghosted into view. Fine sediment rippled like desert dunes. Then the light swept across stone. A curved wall. Not smooth, angular, stacked, fractured. Masonry. Jonah leaned forward. Zoom. The drone drifted closer. Blocks the size of cars lay fused together, crusted with mineral growth, but unmistakably shaped. "That's not geological," Mira said. A second camera panned. Metal glinted. Not wreckage, not scattered debris. Piled. In deliberate mounds. Gold reflected the floodlights in dull amber flashes beneath layers of calcite. Silence filled the room. Finally, someone whispered, "Holy." Jonah finished it. "Hell." The Dragon's Lair. They spent 12 hours circling the structure. The depression was real, a vast bowl carved into the seafloor, possibly by tectonic collapse centuries ago. Inside it sat a labyrinth of stone ridges and broken walls, forming a crude ring around the central mound. And everywhere, gold. Coins fused into plates, chalices tangled in coral, bars stabbed with half-eroded crests, cannons stacked like discarded toys, galleon hull fragments embedded in sediment, ribs split open as if crushed by something enormous. "It's not one ship," said Elise Navarro, the expedition historian. "It's dozens." She overlaid old charts on the map. Shipping routes intersected precisely above the pit. Storm records clustered unnaturally, and a handwritten margin from a Spanish logbook dated 1739 glowed on her tablet. The sea boiled, and the compass failed. We saw fire beneath the waves. Jonah rubbed his neck. Fire. Volcanic vents, someone suggested. Mira shook her head. There's no vent field here, no sulfur plumes, no heat anomalies. The drone dipped lower, scanning the central mound. The crown was not stone, it was treasure. A mountain of it. Coins, armor, sculpture, chests collapsed into each other. Centuries of salvage dreams fused into a single glimmering mass. Jonah whispered, "Someone or something moved all this." The first recovery. International law complicated everything. Finders didn't keepers at 3,000 meters, especially when colonial governments and insurance companies still existed on paper. But before politics came engineering. They deployed a second drone equipped with manipulators. The claw reached down, pried a gold ingot loose from mineral crust. As it lifted, the camera shook. Sediment puffed outward in slow-motion clouds. "Thrusters?" Jonah asked. "No," the pilot replied. "Something shifted." The sonar lit up. A long, curved echo traced itself along the far edge of the depression. Too smooth. Too big.
Mira frowned. "That wasn't there 10 minutes ago. Probably a rockfall," Jonah said, though he didn't sound convinced. They raised the ingot anyway. Back aboard the Ardent Tide, the bar weighed nearly 25 kilograms. The stamp, partially eroded, showed a dragon coiled around a crown. Elise swallowed. That symbol belonged to the Meridian Company. Jonah blinked. The privateers? The richest shipping cartel of the 18th century. They vanished after one voyage carrying tribute from Asia, Africa, and the Americas. How much gold? Elise didn't hesitate. Enough to bankrupt empires. The sound beneath the sound. Night fell again. Most of the crew tried to sleep. Jonah didn't. He stood on deck listening to the hull creak, staring into black water lit only by the ship's flood lamps. Somewhere below, 3 kilometers down, lay the greatest hoard ever discovered, and something about it made his skin itch. Mira joined him. "You're thinking it too," she said. "That this was arranged? That we're not the first to find it?" Jonah nodded. ROVs had existed for decades. Militaries mapped trenches constantly. Corporations scraped seabeds for minerals, yet no one had claimed this. Mira lowered her voice. "There's something else." She showed him her tablet. Acoustic recordings from the drone's descent. Most of it was static, current noise, distant tectonic pops, but layered beneath a low-frequency rhythm. Pulse. Pause. Pulse. Not seismic, too regular. Jonah stared at the waveform. How long has that been there? Since we entered the depression. Day 3. They planned a controlled excavation, sediment suction, minimal disturbance, precise mapping. The drone returned to the lair. Light swept across gold. Then, movement. Not fast, slow. A ridge at the edge of the pit shifted, shedding silt. Jonah leaned forward. Hold position. The ridge curved upward, a segmented arc. Mira whispered, "That's not rock." The camera zoomed. Barnacle-covered plates overlapped like armor. A shape rose from the seabed. Not a serpent, too broad. A colossal form curled around the outer ring of treasure, blending so perfectly with mineral growth that centuries of sediment had disguised it as geology. Eyes opened. 2 pale orbs reflected the drone's lights. The sonar screamed, "Pull back!
Jonah shouted. The pilot slammed controls. The drone surged upward. A tail the width of a bus swept through the silt. The shockwave tumbled Calypso sideways. Static exploded across monitors. Then, darkness. Signal lost. No one spoke. Jonah swallowed. Tell me that was mechanical. Mira shook her head slowly. No machine grows barnacles. The dragon. They didn't sleep at all. Emergency protocols activated. External lights stayed on. Sonar swept continuously. Nothing surfaced. Nothing approached. But the pit was gone from sonar, replaced by a distorted shadow. Elise whispered, "Dragons in old maps weren't always fantasy. They meant unknown hazards," Jonah said, "or guardians." Mira zoomed the scan. The shadow coiled around the depression, perfectly. The decision. By morning, the satellite uplink crackled with government inquiries, unusual acoustic spikes, unexplained magnetic readings flagged by monitoring systems. They had hours at best before someone else arrived. Jonah gathered the senior crew. "We leave," Mira said immediately. "We can't," Elise countered. "This is history, human history." Jonah stared at the table. "We already took gold." Silence. "Predators don't like that." Mira met his eyes. "You think it's alive?" "I think it's been here 3 centuries and nobody bothered it until we did." Outside, the hull vibrated faintly. Not waves, something deeper. Jonah closed his eyes for a second. "Launch the secondary drone, wide scan only." What the dragon watched. ROV Orpheus descended slower, carefully. The pit reappeared in the lights. The treasure mound sat undisturbed, but the outer ring, gone, open sediment where the ridges had been. Jonah whispered, "It moved." A shape uncoiled from darkness, fully visible now. It was longer than the ship, its body segmented into mineral-armored plates. Fins like folded wings lined its sides, a skull-shaped head with ridged crests and jaws layered with crystalline growth. Gold and relics clung to it, fused into its hide. The hoard wasn't separate, it was embedded. The creature wasn't guarding treasure, it was wearing centuries of wreckage like scales. Mira's voice trembled. "That's biological and metallic." Elise whispered, "It's become the graveyard." The dragon's head tilted. Sonar flared. It was listening. Then it surged upward, straight toward the drone. "Abort! Abort!" Orpheus rocketed skyward. The camera caught one last image, a massive jaw opening, lined with stone-crusted teeth. Signal cut. Retreat. Jonah didn't argue anymore. "All engines, we leave." Propellers churned. The ship turned. Below them, the ocean pulsed. Something massive displaced water. Sonar tracked a shape rising fast, too fast. Depth, 2,500, 2,000. Mira whispered, "It's following." Jonah grabbed the rail. Then it stopped. The shadow hovered beneath them, not attacking, waiting, as if marking the boundary. Minutes passed. The shadow sank, back into the abyss. Aftermath. They reported everything. Governments classified it. Oceanographic institutes denied it. The gold bar vanished into custody. Official statements called it a previously unknown geological-biological hybrid formation. Jonah resigned 3 months later. Mira stopped diving. Elise published nothing. Every journal rejected the manuscript. But sometimes, late at night, Jonah listened to the raw audio files he'd secretly kept. The low-frequency pulse still echoed through them, slow, steady, like breathing. Epilogue. 2 years later, a deep-sea mining rig vanished near the same coordinates. No wreckage, no distress call, just a final sonar spike and a circular depression where the seafloor had once been. Far below, in total darkness, a colossal shape settled again into its nest. Around it, gold glimmered faintly, and something ancient and patient resumed its watch over the dragon's lair beneath the ocean.